The Battle of Midway is considered by many to be the major turning point in America's conflict with Japan during the Second World War. This battle was one of the first in the Pacific theater where Americans used decoded Japanese fleet orders. This advantage contributed to a major U.S. victory, which kicked off a larger offensive against a crippled Japanese navy. America was successful mainly due to the decoded Japanese orders. The Japanese used several codes over the course of World War II, but the U.S. didn't manage to decode any of them to a useful extent until March of 1942. JN25, the code that was finally broken, was created with the use of a book cipher, which works similarly to a dictionary. Each word in the message which was to be encoded was looked up in the cipher book, and the corresponding 5-digit number written down. Each word, no matter how long, had a 5-digit series which always represented it. This translation was not very secure and was mainly used so that the message could be super-enciphered. To accomplish this, a separate book containing a series of random 5-digit codes was needed. An arbitrarily chosen code was added under the first word of the message, the next code to the second word, and so on until every word had its own code. After this, each pair of numbers was added together without carrying over to the next place. The position of the first code used in the super-encipherment book was placed at the beginning of the message so that it could be decoded by reversing the whole process. After breaking JN25 in March 1942, America began deciphering messages, but it wasn't until May 2nd that the first message related to an upcoming Japanese attack was intercepted. By May 16th, the U.S. had learned the final battle positions of the Japanese fleet and had already sent ships towards Midway to intercept them. Officially taking place from June 4th to 7th, the Battle of Midway was fought mostly on its first day. American scout planes confirmed that the Japanese were approaching the island of Midway on the 3rd, and by the morning of June 4th, an air battle between the Japanese and the aircraft stationed on the island had begun. The first planes from the approaching American carriers to attack were 15 torpedo bombers headed for the Japanese carriers Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu. This attack pulled Japanese aircraft from the battle over the island to defend the carriers. Nearly 50 fighters intercepted the small force of American bombers, all of which were destroyed. The Americans followed up this attack with 26 more torpedo bombers, again without fighter escort. This attack was split 14 to the Akagi's right and 12 to its left. Japanese fighters shot down 7 bombers on each side, but not before they were within range to drop their torpedoes. It looked like the Akagi would be sunk, but the American bombers flew over and instead lined up to bomb Hiryu. Several more bombers were shot down by anti-aircraft guns, reducing the force to only 7 planes. Finally, the remaining bombers dropped their torpedoes into the ocean and headed back home, still being pursued by Japanese fighters. The torpedoes approached the Hiryu, but it was able to turn quickly to the right and dodge every one. Although it seemed like nothing had been accomplished, a large enough portion of Japanese planes were distracted from the air battle over the island that American dive bombers could enter the fight unhindered. These planes approached the Japanese under cover of clouds and began dropping bombs. The Japanese carriers had their planes out in the open to be refueled and rearmed, making them especially vulnerable to the attacking Americans. By the end of the day, all 4 Japanese carriers were sunk or sinking. The following day, retreating Japanese forces were pursued, and on the 3rd day, American air attacks were concluded. The Battle of Midway had far-reaching repercussions. Although Japan lost many ships, the loss of most of their mechanics and repair crews was far more difficult to replace. After such a big American victory, the Japanese had to devote a lot more attention to the Pacific theater. This meant that China had an easier time retaliating against Japan, and the Soviet Union was able to turn more attention towards their Western Front. Finally, and most immediately important to America, Japan was on the defensive. Although the Battle of Midway did not win the war in the Pacific, it certainly propelled the Allies to victory. Now, 5 bonus facts about the Battle of Midway. Fact number 1. The American admirals in command during the battle were Chester Nimitz, Raymond Spruance, William Halsey Jr., and Frank Fletcher. Fact number 2. Midway Island, or more specifically Midway Atoll, was a set of ring-shaped islands with a total land area of only 2.4 square miles. Fact number 3. During the Cold War, Midway would become an important American outpost used as an early warning of possible Russian attacks. Fact number 4. Midway was officially an unincorporated territory of America, but in 1996 it was proclaimed a national wildlife refuge to protect several species of birds. Fact number 5. The USS Yorktown, one of America's carriers which participated in the battle, already had battle damage from a previous engagement and was sunk on June 6th by a Japanese submarine. Finally, special thanks goes to Jody Warner and David Learman for financially sponsoring the use of Adobe Creative Cloud.